Hi and welcome. This is Angela and I'm just starting the live today on lungs. This is the New Energy Body channel and I'm still learning how to do the live videos. So today I wasn't sure how to do it in the studio control room, so I just started a new live and we're going to dance and move with the lungs today. So each of the 12 videos for the New Energy Body channel is going to be around the organs, about shifting the energy of the organs so we can move into a new way of being with our bodies. And for those of you who are joining, you may also like to watch that previous video, which was the heart, start with heart. So we're going to go right into it. And if you do have comments, I'll get to them later because I can't address them while I'm doing the movement. But we're going to start with the heart in the middle of the lungs. And to give you an image to work with today, I'm going to give you some anatomy pictures, which for some of you may be not your favorite way of looking at the body. So if any of the images that I use today about the lungs and the anatomy don't really vibe with you, just close your eyes. And when we come to moving with that part of the body, I'll give you other cues as to how to connect to the lungs, the heart, and the alveoli, which is my new word for the day. It's like ravioli, alveoli. They're our beautiful creatures or balls or bubbles of space and structure within the lungs that circulate blood, oxygen, and do so much for us to take in new life, to expel old energy. So even the lungs, it's the most simplest gift that you've been given to take in energy and to expel energy. We have other systems that I'm going to go through to expel things in our life, but the lungs are the most potent. So let's have a look. I'm just going to share an image now of how the heart, which we started with the heart organ, how it's situated with the lungs, because this is fascinating. And if you're a geek like me about the body, you might like this picture more than other people. So here we go. I'm sorry I don't have a very good screen share option here, but here we go with how that heart organ is situated between the lungs. So as we move into the beginning of the class today, what we're going to do is actually experience the heart as sitting in the valley of the lungs. So you can see I'm on the same side as you. The heart is slightly situated to the left. And keep in mind that our organs are not static like an anatomy model. And if you've ever worked with bodies, you'll see that they're not just little anatomy structures. They're quite different. They're globular, they move, they roll, they rock and roll. So music and dance are really great ways, as I learn how to dance with the precarious elements here of my computer stand. The organs of the body also have a rotating shape to them. And as we begin, we're going to today explore the shape of the lungs. So I gave you a picture there that you can maybe use as an image and the shape of the lungs. And our organs also, when they are inside our bodies, also learn how to roll with their own shape. So organs by their nature, because they move, are very much connected to music, are very much connected to being able to change. And if you're watching this video in the time of isolation, you may have some issues about change. So organs are always, by their own nature, being forced to move to accommodate change. By their own structure, have the ability to change. And they're a really great way to work with your body if you want things to move out of your body and change. Working with organs, working with the fluidity and the shape of organs is a great way to start. So also today we're using our hands in the class, and the hands are going to be used throughout the 12 organ dance. I've called it the 12 organ dance because we're looking at how to shift the energy of our organs to go into a new way of being with our bodies, with our world. So let's just reconnect to our hands for this moment. I've got an interesting thing going on my left hand here. You can see a little nodule going on. So there's something trying to move out of my body at this moment. So as you feel into your hands, there's an energy point right here in the center of your palms that's quite powerful. Everybody has it. No one's different. Everybody's born with it. Even amputees have an energetic extension to that part of the limb if they choose to use it, and they don't need to because they probably have other ways of connecting to the energy. So seeing that center point of the hands there, just imagine you're like Luke Skywalker, or you're using the force in the center of your palms, and you're just beginning to imagine that you've got an energetic extension outside of that center of the palms. And today we're going to use our fingers as well to connect to the ribs. So this is also in memory and thanks to Annetta Luce, who gave me so much of the gifts that I'm sharing with you today and helped me to enjoy my body in a way I never was able to before I met her. And we're going to explore the fingers and their relationship to your body as well today. But first, feel that energy extension through the center of the palms. And just to begin the class, I want you to make a sphere, imaginary sphere around your energy space with those points of the center points of your palms. So it's like you're doing a huge bubble around your energy sphere. I'm not going to bend all the way down. I'm just imagining that the hands are going all the way from the center of my palms down to below the feet. And I'm just mapping that sphere. And you can close your eyes and do that as well. As you close your eyes, just imagine there's a huge bubble of energy around you. It's in dance called the kinesphere. I like to call it the kind sphere. And in energy work, we actually call it your bubble, your energy bubble, aura, whatever words you like to use. But your bubble energetically extends much further than my hands can reach. So even with the extension of the point from the center of the palms, you can imagine that it's reaching 3 feet beyond your body to your energy bubble or aura. And around your bubble, you can seal your energy so that only love can enter or leave your bubble. And this gives you a nice dance bubble. Like in dance, we call it the kinesphere. So a kinesphere goes beyond 3 feet. It's actually your reach in space. All potential reach in space with your kinesphere radiates out from your center, and your center is that channel of energy that I connected us to when we looked at the heart chakra and the heart organ. And that center is also your navel, your belly button, your umbilical in the Brazilian. So your reach into that sphere goes all the way around. And today, when we reach from the lungs, we're going to see how that reach feels when we open into the lungs. So some of you may not have danced from your lungs before, the reach of the lungs. So we're going to use a lot of imagination and play today. So once you feel like you're sealed in your bubble, just opening your eyes and come to how you're standing. This is a standing class today. If you want to sit, you can. If you're standing, just bring awareness to the feet and that space between the feet. And notice if there's anything below your feet, because I'm just clearing out actually something's below your feet, because that's energetically, whatever's below your feet is going to come up your center. So I'm getting some cables out of the way and dancing, not just through electronics, even though the lungs are connected to a lot of air energy and electronics are also in that air energy. I don't exactly want to be dancing on my computer cable. It's a bit interesting how I've got it set up here. So feeling that space between your feet and just shifting your weight over the feet. Whenever we start with movement, we want to start sensing how the feet are our anchor to the earth. And that's where we're going to maybe release some of your energy today if you want to release. You don't have to. There's nothing we're not forcing anything today. It's just what's ready to be released. And you don't even need to know what's been released if there's anything to be released. That's the power of the body. It can actually have its own wisdom through the breath. You don't need to tell the body what to do. It's got its own wisdom, and we're going to tap into that today. So just noticing that space between your feet, and I'm just shifting weight from one foot to the other, and I'm giving about 2 hands distance between my feet so I can have a bit more motion when it comes to the upper body and when it comes to the lungs and expanding into the lungs. So I can actually feel my lungs shifting one over the right and the left in this moment. So keep in mind, I'm putting the hands on the lungs now, right and left lung. And I'm just imagining my right is shifting over the right foot and left over the left. So I'm going to be opposite to you if you're watching the video. So my left and right won't be the same when I call it. So just noticing in your own body how your right lung is shifting its weight over the right foot and the left is over the left. And I may bring the image of the lungs back as well, because later on we just really need to connect to how big these lungs are, how they are able to expand in the body. But right now, we're just going to focus on how the lungs are on either side of your heart. So your heart is around where my microphone is and a little bit to my left. So I'm not going to put my hand there to cover the microphone. I'm just going to hold my hand off the body over that heart space, just to connect to the heart space. And again, just shifting my weight slowly so the heart space can feel that shift between one foot and the other. And to give a bit more grounding, just notice the bottom of your feet, because sometimes when we're standing on our feet, we don't actually really ground into the earth. And today, when we want to expand our lungs, we really want to know that we've got a nice, juicy grounding in our feet. So bring your attention to the skin on the bottom of your feet, and just with your imagination, maybe your breath if you want, just imagine that skin is softening into the earth beneath you. I'm on plush carpet, so it's a nice sort of squishy feeling. If you're on a floorboard or something, imagine if you can bring a softness to the bottom of the feet. So imagine you're in sand or some sort of surface that you enjoy, that you would love to have your feet standing on right now. And you're relaxing the bottom of the feet and softening the skin of the feet so it can ground even more gently into the earth. And this just gives another way to ground our energy, so we're bringing in the softness of the body. Organs love to be soft. They love to be nurtured. So softness in the body is really important to welcome the organs to do whatever they need to do. And remember, our body has a wisdom, so you don't need to tell your body what to do. It's showing you every second of the day. Softness just simply allows natural processes in the body to occur. And it's very different to exercise. It's a welcoming of the body, so it can show you how it needs to move, or what it needs to move, or when it needs to move, and when it needs to maybe be still. So then we'll take your hands, again, just feeling that energy in the hands. If you want to, you can bring your hands together and feel that chi or whatever you feel between the hands. Sometimes people feel nothing. And I do this between their hands and they kind of go, hey, hang on, get out of my space. That's what I'm talking about. That's your sacred space here between your hands. That's your own chi and your own life energy right there between your hands. So if someone comes and messes with that, you tell them, hey, that's my space. That's my sacred space. Because your hands are your own healers and they're going to give you a lot of that soft contact that your organs will love, so you can release or take in whatever you want. Remember, all of the organs are two directional. They can't take in and they push things out and move things out. They're very great dancers. All organs are great dancers. So we want our hands to acknowledge that in a nice, honoring, gentle way. And we're going to take our hands now to each mountain of the lung. So remembering that picture where the lungs have a peak up here and then they bulge out the bottom and they have a peak on the other side, and nuzzled in the middle is that heart. So we're just going to spend a few moments here expanding the collarbones wide and just bringing them close in. So you're imagining with your eyes closed now that the mountains of the lungs, those beautiful pear-shaped lungs, are just coming in to surround your heart. So the valley of the lungs comes to nuzzle and embrace your heart, your physical heart and the heart chakra, actually. So you just play with that expansion of the collarbones, opening up, and you can even imagine that the peaks of the lungs come up all the way to your collarbones. So when you reach your collarbones wide, the tips of your lungs actually go to beyond the top of the collarbones. It's a part of the lungs we don't really pay much attention to because we don't know about it. So if you can just imagine for a moment now with the tips of your fingers touching the base of your collarbones here, I want you to just bring the tips of the fingers just above the collarbones, because that's there where the tips of your lungs are. And this time, I want you to bend forward over that heart center, and you can open your eyes to see. And just as you open up the heart and the lungs, feel the tips of the lungs reaching up into and above the collarbones. And you can just use some sound if you like, but see if you can just imagine those tips of the lungs just coming up to meet the fingers over the top of your collarbone. So it's like you're opening up to the full reach of your lungs in space. And I'm keeping my knees nice and soft, and I'm just allowing the tips of the lungs to show me if I can feel where those tips are with my imagination, because we can't really dig in and get to the tips with our fingers, but the actual lungs are reaching up beyond your collarbone. So the tips there are quite expansive. They're able to give you a reach in space. And then taking your palms back to each side of the lungs. Now I'll just using your imagination and closing the eyes, imagine that the tips of your lungs are reaching into space, and you're just going to take a moment to see if there's anything in the tips of your lungs that maybe needs more attention or oxygen. So take a few moments to see if you can imagine the tips of the lungs. They're a little bit hard to feel, but maybe you can take your breath into there and see if you can expand into the very tips of the lungs that come to the peaks of your collarbones. You may need to touch your collarbones and just feel some pressure there and see how the tips of your lungs reach higher and closer to your throat than you ever could imagine. Take a few breaths to feel how tall the reach of the lungs is. And see if there's anything in those upper lungs that you're ready to release, or ask your body if there's something that needs to be released as you exhale the breath out. And gentle touch or massage also can be really nice, just to give a sense of, your body's able to connect to any parts of the lungs that may need some activation or a gentle touch. My fingertips are usually the most sensitive. So usually just my fingertips coming into that collarbone allows me to feel the peaks of the lungs reaching in space. So this time, we're just going to take our hands back to both of the lungs. And with your breath, knowing that those peaks of the lungs are there, just take a few moments to feel the lungs expanding with your breath. So feel the shape of the lungs and the contact with your hand, being able to give support to the lungs. You don't need to press firmly. You can just give support with your hands to the lungs. And with one of your hands now, you're just going to feel that extent of the lung into space. So it might actually feel like you want to expand that reach of the lung, just like we were feeling with the top of the lung, feeling that reach of the lung in space back into our kinesphere. Remember that big bubble of movement? Feeling how your hand actually reaches from that lung as an extension, an expansion of the lung. So when you're doing your stretches, if you really want to open up the lungs and feel that shift of the lungs, what you can try to play with is maybe closing your eyes and just feel your hand expanding the lung as it reaches out in space. So you're not just stretching out of the body, but you're feeling that heart and lung expand through the hand and reach out into your sphere of energy, your bubble. And you feel how, as you reach your hand out into space, that your heart and lung wants to expand. So this movement that we have in a lot of dances, African, Brazilian, Middle Eastern, most dances that have a belly movement, is always about expanding the heart and lung relationship. So you're hiding the heart and then you're expanding the heart that's in the valley of the lung. So just play a little bit now with that expansion of the heart in the valley of the lungs as you feel the lungs expanding around the heart, and remembering the tips of your lungs, opening up that area just above the collarbones and below the throat. So the lungs have a huge expanse in space. And then bringing the body back to stillness. And this time we're going to take the hands away from the lungs and just relax them by your sides. And with your eyes opened or closed, just notice the feeling of your lungs. Notice how the lungs feel. Do they feel more expanded? What do they feel? Notice how they feel. I'm still keeping that gentle rock as well, because that's what my body is showing me to do. If I could be still, I'd be still, but not in this moment. But maybe you wish to just feel a different movement in your body from the lungs. The lungs might want to rotate up, or they might want to roll down and get compressed. So in dance, a lot of our movements are about expansion and compression of the organs themselves. So this time, what we're going to do is go a little deeper into the lungs themselves. So as we go into the organs, there's parts of the organs, pieces of the organs, like little microsystems within the larger outer shell or case or skin of the organ. And I've got a picture here of my friend alveoli, my word for the day, ravioli, alveoli, where we can see within the lungs themselves are these glorious little broccoli-like structures that are surrounded by, in this picture, it's the veins and arteries that go into your lungs. And so those little alveoli are at the end of like a tree-like structure of, I don't actually know if they're veins. That's a good point. I don't know what they are. But you can see in this picture all of the airways that go to the alveoli here. It's like a tree or a coral system. And the alveoli are where we might store old stuff. It's just like a car. You use it for a while and it stores some built up residue of all sorts of liquids. So in our lungs, you may have alveoli that may be holding things. And you may notice as we're moving through change, which is the nature of our life these days, change is part of what we're moving through all the time, but more obviously, you might have a holding in your breath. You might have a holding in your lungs. You might have a holding in your alveoli, word of the day. So I noticed as I was preparing for today, I held my breath. So we just want to play with the alveoli and see if there's any little alveolis that might want to, with your breath, just release anything. So once again, just closing your eyes, and you can bring one hand or both hands, just one hand for me at the moment. I'm just going to play with where any of those alveoli in the lungs may need to have a little bit deeper connection with my imagination. And keep in mind, this is not exact. It's really about what you feel and how you listen and that softness, because your body will show you through just breathing and movement and sometimes disease and other things. But let's not do those, right? Let's do it through play and just feeling and breathing into some of those little bubbles of the alveoli inside of the lungs right now. So my hand, remember our hands as healers, is showing me here to put the hand here under the lung. So I'm just bringing my hand here, which is where I had a bit of liquid residue for a while last year. And I just connected that, like I had a sickness last year, but for you, it'll be where your hands will show you. So take a moment, close your eyes, and just naturally, without thinking, just allow your hands to fall somewhere on your lungs, the right or left or both. And just feel and imagine into those alveoli now that may just need a little bit more warmth or attention. And with your breath, see if you can imagine that you're taking in extra energy at this time. And as you exhale, you're just releasing what's ready to be released. And it can be a small breath, like a sigh, or the breath can be stronger. It'll be dependent on your lungs. They will show you the type of breath that feels good. Don't force or do it like you're trying to be hungry like the wolf or anything. With chi work, we used pursed lips sometimes. direct the breath, but that may not be the right thing for you right now. So one more time, we're just going to connect to our alveoli that you're imagining your hand is connecting to. And you're just imagining the bubbles now are receiving that energy through breath, through liquid, through whatever form, through light, through any form. And then with your imagination and breath, you're just releasing what's ready to be released. And if you want, at any time when you're connecting to your lungs, you can stay here and go deeper. Today, I'm going to finish with our ribs, the intercostal energy between the ribs, the muscles, and the bones. But sometimes your alveoli may just need to have a little bit more time with you. So I invite you to spend time with your alveoli in isolation. It might be an interesting way to discover how breathing goes to that micro level for you. It can also be a really good way to release just any old stuff that's no longer needed. And this is the shift that we're doing in our organs. We're just letting old energies go. And it can be that simple. Putting your hand on a part of your organ, going deeper into the structure of the organ with your imagination and your intent, and just releasing what's ready to be released. My hand doesn't really want to leave. However, we're going to finish with the ribs, because sometimes with our lungs, what happens is energy gets stuck in the body levels around the organ itself. So sometimes from a fear or holding pattern, we get energy that's stuck in the ribs and the intercostal muscles between them as a way of protecting the lungs that might already be a bit jacked up from some other energy. It's like, well, I can't stuff any more into my alveoli. Let me put it in my intercostal muscles between my ribs and create ribs that no longer want to expand or have fun or fluidly flow with your organs, right? Because our organs love to rock and roll and to be fluid and move. They love that freedom. And sometimes what resists change is the stuff we've stuffed into the muscles and the fascia and the bones around the organs. So I just want to share with you what Annetta Luce shared with us that transformed my relationship to my ribs, because I don't just like to eat them. Well, not my ribs, but other ribs. But the shape of the ribs, and I don't have a picture of those, but the shape of your ribs here are very much the same as the shape of our fingers. And yes, I'm a nerd, geek, anatomy person. But when you wrap your fingers around here, you're literally mapping the shape of the ribs. And so for some of us, there's a few other rolls of fat and other things there, but it doesn't matter because you're still underneath that, mapping on the surface the shape of the ribs. And a beautiful way to expand into the bottom part of your lungs, which may hold old funky stuff, like mine had a little funk from last year, it's still a nice way to support and cradle the ribs. So try it with one hand and then later two hands. I'm just going to do one so I can really get into the shape and the mapping of the ribs here, the lower ribs. Of course, there's more ribs up here too, but there's something else in the way for me. So I'm going to come in here and just map the ribs that cradle the bottom part of the lung. And as I'm reaching around here, I'm just feeling those ribs bend and fold into the bony structure of the bones of the hands. And I'm feeling how those ribs can also expand with the assistance of those fingers. So I'm opening up, feeling the ribs bend and fold over to the fingers. And just noticing if there's any sort of discomfort in that area. And sometimes it's just about rolling with it. Hey, that's how we roll with change. So if there is any discomfort feelings, notice how you can use movement now to communicate with the fingers and the palm of your hand, just to allow that part of the body to let go, to open up, to feel tenderness, and to expand with your breath as well, or with just your movement. So it's really nice movement with the ribs meeting the fingers and mapping out the ribs with the fingers. Between your ribs are these muscles where things can get stuck, creating a barrier to opening up and expanding the lungs. So just notice as you've got your fingers mapping the ribs, if there's any movement that the ribs might like. They might like to tip to one side, they might like to slide, so they might like to feel how they can be contained with the hands and the fingers. And as you're moving the ribs into the fingers, just imagining that the bottom parts of your lungs are able to go deeper into the body to relax. Maybe then you can start feeling how those lungs can move inside the cradle of the ribs, the safety of the ribs, the form of the ribs being like a cradle for the bottom of the lungs. And that's how the ribs are shaped actually. They're curved like a cradle for the base of your ribs to give that safety to the organs there. So a lot of our bone and skeletal structure is really shaped to protect, nurture, support, and give form to the organs, to give the organs a space, a shape to dance inside of. So I'll just finish with a few movements of the lungs dancing in that support of the ribs and the expanse of the tips of the lungs into the collarbones here that create the top part of the lungs skeletal structure that creates a framework for it to expand into. And so you can keep your eyes open or closed and just imagine now how your lungs are able to move within that shape created by the ribs from each side, moving in any direction that you feel your lungs want to move. And then opening up to the top parts of the lungs so they can expand beyond the collarbones. Even energetically, they can go beyond the physical body and reach in space. And you can feel that connection between the lungs and your hands. So as you reach to the side, feel that hand reaching from your lung. So it's reaching out and expanding the lung into space. And you're allowing the lungs to just expand and feel any parts of the lungs that need to wake up, to be awoken, to feel its reach in space. And allowing yourself to just experience whatever your lungs want to experience right now in this moment. Taking some breaths or just moving in space or being still. we're going to finish with some visualization, which you can do with stillness or movement, about how you want to take in life with your lungs. Now, for some of you, you won't want to move. For others, you may. So it's completely up to you. And you can keep the eyes closed. But just imagine now that your lungs are able to take in life, whatever life means to you. You don't need to know what it means. Imagine how that looks and feels to take in life. You can take in the breaths or you can use movement. What does taking in life feel and look like? What movement does it give you, if any? How do you want to open your lungs to life? And then gently bringing those hands back to any part of your body, your lungs, your heart, any part of your body. So you can feel that connection from the center of your palms and the whole of your palm to the body. Bringing yourself to stillness and gently opening your eyes. And at this point, you may like to just stay with the lungs and the feeling that you have, or you might want to write, what did I experience about taking in life? What do my lungs feel like? What did I experience today? So I invite you to join me next month at the end. It's last Monday in May. May we? And it's Mondays, Australia, Sydney time, 1:30 p.m. for the brain. Yes, I still have one, and I'm working out how to dance with it. And ironically, our brains would not function without our heart and our lungs. So who's the boss, right? Who's the boss? The brain, the heart, the lungs. Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Who's the boss? In the Aquarian age, the brain, heart, lungs, and other systems are all equal. In other ages, the Enlightenment period, the brain became the boss, and that wasn't so in other periods. In the Aquarian age that we're moving into, they're all part of a moving, dancing symphony. All right? So the organ dance is about how do we know which organ to use at what time when we need it. And that is going to then ripple out into our society. So as we dance with the different organs and allow them to show us how to lead the way of what they need or how they want to be felt and listened to, then we start to prioritize one organ at a time, depending on who's talking as a priority. So it's going to be interesting with the 12 organs that I'm going to be dancing with, how they all come together, because you can have a dance with the heart, the lungs, the brain, the cerebrospinal fluid, and all different systems to create an interesting dance. And that is how we're going to be looking at all these different organs, how they may just actually dance together, or one organ may be coming out to speak to you at a particular time. I look forward to hearing your comments. I will watch them later. And thank you for joining, and have a beautiful dance with your organs and a beautiful month until I see you next time.